Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Double M Radio Gamescast. It's the original two Gamescast people, Wyatt and I today,
Yeah.
because we got a special
Technically,
topic.
technically speaking, I'm not even original. I came
Well,
in
you're the original of
after.
the Gamescast. You're not original of Double O on Radio, which was
That's
originally an
true.
anime podcast about Toradora, which is
Oh,
still
how
on the
times have
channel. I think if you go
changed.
really far back, you can find that. We were
Oh, how
wacky,
times have
wacky.
changed.
How the times have changed. Speaking of the eternal wheel of time marching ever onwards, we're going to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 because it's been
Yeah.
just about a year since the Switch
Close
2
enough.
launched, 'cause in the ballpark, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so we got a lot of things to talk about. It's like just under because
hmm
June 5th was the of last year, 2025 was the Switch 2 launch date.
Right.
And we've both had our Switch 2s since launch. We colluded quite a lot to manage to get two of them. Though,
Thank you again.
granted, granted, one of the things I want to give Nintendo props for Switch 2 launch is that stock was not a problem beyond the first 2 weeks or so.
I feel like they started to restock stores post launch
Really
fairly
quickly,
quickly.
because a bunch of people had been
Um,
worried they couldn't get them because the Switch 1 was a nightmare when it came
yeah.
out. It had like stock issues for
As is
almost two
this in,
years or so.
as is this entire generation of consoles. Like, oh my God, how long did it take until PS5s and
Yeah,
and Xbox Series were
you
in
could just go buy them
stores?
at Target. Like,
Yeah,
took a
yeah, it
while.
took a while.
And it's starting to happen again because everything's price increasing crazy.
Which we'll get
uh,
to.
which we will talk about. But yeah, first things first, I want to kind of get a general. Gather the baseline of.
Mhm.
It's been about a year of owning a Switch 2. Do you think it was worth buying? And the caveat that is relating to the price thing here is that Switch 2s are being raised by about $50 US, which is where Wyatt and I are. So that's our point of reference. It's being raised across everything by varying amounts, but
Mhm.
for US dollars, it's a $50 increase from 450 to 500
Yeah.
US dollars.
And that takes
Um,
place in September, I want to
yeah, so
say,
they're
which
giving us
who
some lead
props,
time.
yeah, props that they warned us ahead of time. I remember I think PlayStation was literally just like, yeah, we're increasing it end of this month. Deal
Yeah,
with
just dropping it.
it. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it is very good that they're giving some warning on this. And
Yeah.
I think we're in a very different spot now, tech price wise, compared to when the Switch 2 launched. Of like Switch 2 launching, nobody was worried about AI data centers taking all the RAM. That wasn't wasn't
Well,
a
I think there were
concern.
some people, but we weren't
But
we
not the
it
general.
wasn't it
Not, it
wasn't
wasn't affecting the
widespread. Yeah.
layman person.
Yeah.
And then yeah, it very much has become like that's why we haven't seen the Steam frame and the little Gabe Cube uh, launching yet. Is the Gabe Cube is
Oh my
great.
God.
Um,
It's crazy.
Supposedly for the price problems.
Is this the first generation of consoles where all of the consoles are more expensive post-launch? Like they're more expensive near the end of their life
At
cycle
least
than the
within
beginning.
our adult lifetimes, I think that is probably the fair thing to say.
That's so
Um,
bizarre. So
because it's just
bizarre.
foreign territory. The idea that the consoles have shipped and been through enough inflation and weird tech supply issue problems to increase in price, generally by
Yeah.
significant amounts. Like the Switch 2, it's a 10% increase, functionally a little bit below a 10% increase for 450 to 500, and
Mhm.
that's like a pretty beefy price raise. For some of the others, it was also pretty beefy. Like I think the PS5s and Xboxes saw about a $100 increase for a lot
I
of for
think the
some editions.
PS5. Yeah, I think the PS because this has happened a couple times. So I think the PS5 and the Xbox are up like $150, which is crazy, absolutely crazy. And
Hmm.
to a certain extent, like there's goofy, stupid tariffs involved.
Yeah.
There's weird like tech supply issues. I understand to a certain degree why these things have to happen. I do think in some cases the amount
Yeah. So
that
the
prices have
disc
increased
edition
is crazy.
PS5, which is what I have, is now $650 from 500 when it came out, which is like
That's more expensive
crazy.
than ah. Oh
um.
my God.
Yeah, but their non-disc editions are a little bit cheaper, but yeah, it's still quite crazy. Um,
Yeah.
so
And
yeah,
like I was
significant price
saying,
increases.
to a certain extent, I do understand why these things happen just because of economic pressures. I do think the amount that has increased is
Yeah.
a lot. I think in retrospect, I think a $50 increase, not that I'm an expert in any of this stuff, but in my brain, I'm like, given the economic state of things, I kind of
Hmm.
understand where they're coming from. It's also just very poorly it's a whole other conversation, really.
Yeah.
um,
And yeah, it's similar
but
to the price increases of the Series S Xboxes a while back. So I this feels in line, so to speak, with the other companies, but
mhm,
Sony especially is like 150 up from where they originally were, and at least that it were not at that point. Like it hasn't been raised to
yeah.
that level.
I
All
do
that is to
wonder
say
if
that like Wyatt and I did not spend that much money for these. We got
no,
them at the regular
no.
price, the initial
Um,
release price.
I do wonder also if the $50 increase, the reason it isn't higher is because they already increased the price of accessories before launch.
Yes, I think that could
I
be a
do,
significant
yeah.
thing.
Um, I think I stand by. So I mean, we both got the Mario Kart bundle because I
Yeah.
feel like if you wanted Mario Kart for the Switch 2, you would be very silly not to get it because of how much cheaper it is overall than
The
getting the
only
game
reason not to
separately.
would have been really wanting that physical copy, enough to
Which,
pay an
yeah.
extra like 30 something dollars
Right.
over the price of
Um,
the bundle.
I stand by 450 overall being a good price for the console because it is a very capable machine from
Yeah.
a power standpoint. It's incredibly well built. I think for the most part, for its first year, I think the support overall has been pretty good. Both in terms of getting updates for the console post launch and for the games post launch. Um, Going forward, 500 is that's tough.
Hmm.
With nothing bundled in. That's tough. That's definitely, I would say, like,
Yeah.
out of the upper limit for me. But
Yeah, I think for me it's on the edge. Like it's at the point now where I probably would not upgrade unless I really wanted to play Switch 2 stuff.
yeah.
And I think there are like there's reasons to get it, and it depends a lot on like financial situations for folks as well. But things like if I want to play the modern Zelda games at a good locked frame rate, I have to have the Switch 2 upgrades.
Yeah.
Um, and to have that, you need a Switch 2, and then you also need either the subscription or the to buy the upgrades individually. Which like it just Nintendo tends to tack on a lot of like the little expenses afterwards, like make you go, "Huh, I'm paying a lot of money
Yeah.
for this" after the fact. But I do
And that's been one
I do
of the
think there's
biggest
specific scenarios it's quite worth it.
and that's been one of the biggest topics of discussion is these upgrade packs
Yeah.
and also re-releasing the game. Um, which I have one here because I never played Kirby and the Forgotten Land when it came out.
Hmm.
Um, but I heard it ran at a good frame rate, so I got the Switch 2 version right here. Um, it's tricky. I feel like whether or not the upgrades are worth it is really dependent on the game.
Yeah, I agree.
And what you value
Especially
specifically. Like
considering, so if we were having this conversation 2 months ago, I think we would have been saying it's more worth it because uh, the Switch 2 did not have handheld boost at the time,
yes.
which replaces. So now, if you turn that setting on and you boot a Switch 1 game, it will load into the docked mode of that Switch 1 game for all the compatible games. There's most of them, but there's a couple of like minor incompatibilities because some games are like it disables your touchscreen when you do that because it's docked mode. So um, that mode makes a lot of Switch 1 versions of games much more fun because they look great in the handheld because it's a native 1080 screen and you are getting that 1080 docked level of Switch 1 look on the Switch 2. And so typically they run really well and it looks great. Um, but you have other games that are like, okay, here's a frame rate uncapper, and here's like a a slight
Yeah.
resolution boost, and it can feel a little bit scammy, but also it kind of sucks to play without them. Um,
Yeah.
which is I
And
feel like a common theme with the Switch 2.
and like I said, it really comes down to what you're gonna value specifically. Ryan and I really value playing the newer Zelda games at a at a locked 60
At
frames
not
per
30.
second and not 30. Well,
Really,
usually
it's at
sub
not
30.
30. Yeah, at not sub 30.
Um,
Um,
but I mean, as someone who's been going back and trying to finish a bunch of Zelda games that I had started, or starting new ones from scratch, it's been really nice kind of comparing my experience pre-Switch 2 and post-Switch 2.
yeah.
Um,
I
I
think it's
mean,
also fair
yeah,
to say the Switch 2 is just more comfortable to hold
yeah.
in a
I
lot of
still
ways.
have I still have a lot of problems with it feeling really cramped. Like I've said a million times, it's really hard to go back from the Steam Deck because I feel like in terms of this like tablet style game console, the Steam Deck has perfect
The controllers are
ergonomics.
perfect. Though I do think getting these are the kill switch grips here for the Joy
Oh, yep.
Cons.
Oh,
Those make
we're doing the
it
show and
so much
tell.
better. We're starting the show and tell. So I have for mine, and I don't typically case most of my like handhelds. I will usually just use them unless they need it for like they're poorly built and they're gonna break. But generally speaking, those things are built well enough that you don't need a full case for them. But I do think getting like the Joy-Con grips is super worth it. Because like
Yeah.
at least with this, I don't have the like kill switch body on. I just have the Joy-Con, so it still fits on the regular dock, and that works super well.
The one I got, it kind of um doubles as like kind of a tough case, but also has grips on it.
Hmm.
It's not dockable. I like it being one unit because it feels the Joy Cons feel less wiggly when you're actually controlling it, which is
See,
nice.
I like to do
Just
this
the
too
little,
much.
yeah, I get you, I get you.
I like it too
Just
much.
having the little bumps on here makes a huge difference. And the thing I like about this one that I got is that you can pair it with from the same company a travel case that will specifically fit that grip, which is nice. So you can just flip this guy open. This isn't sponsored, to be clear. This is just my
It's just,
experience.
we're talking
Um,
about the cases and stuff. I do
we're
think
not big
Switch 2
enough for
got better
sponsors.
options. Is like I'm rocking a Tom Talk, just like simple. This is my like bag case.
Oh, I had a Tom Talk for my Switch One. Tom Talks are
The
cool.
things that is great about this, they're super cheap, and this one specifically can fit the kill switch like grips in it.
Nice.
It looks awkward, but it does fit as long as you're putting it in. So it's a very nice like size for that specifically. I don't know if it's the full
Mhm,
kill switch, but at least the Joy-Con grips will fit
mhm.
on it. And it also has a little game storage, so you can keep your bits of games in there.
We also did both get Pro controllers. Now,
Yes.
I both of us, if I remember correctly, did not pay full price for these.
Yeah, I got so everything I have that is Switch 2 related, I got from Costco at launch,
Mhm.
which was dramatically less expensive. Because like it was Switch Online for a year with the expansion pack was included in the $500 bundle for Mario Kart. So it
Mm.
was the same like $500 price, but you got a year of Switch Online, which we actually are in a family plan, so I didn't use that, but it was useful for my roommate who picked up a Switch 2 to also be able to play and then get his own subscription with that. So that was great. Costco had a $10 discount on the Pro controllers, which is nice and good enough. And the Pro controller, to be clear, is like a super comfortable controller. I
You
still
think
have problems.
the
The
price
price is the
is
problem.
really steep.
Jay, let me
And
fact check ourselves on what the current price
I believe it's
is.
$90 if I remember
Yeah, I
correctly,
think that is
which
correct.
is crazy for a controller. To be clear, excellent controller. I think it's got the right a nice weight to it because it doesn't feel
Yeah,
too light. Sometimes I feel
89.99.
like yeah. I feel like sometimes like the DualSense, as much as I like the DualSense, can feel kind of heavy and bulky sometimes. It really kind of depends on the day for me. But this feels like it has like a perfect weight, and I really like the ergonomics. Like I really like the big buttons. The thumbsticks feel great.
You
My
said
thing
that, Wyatt. I
is,
actually think the Pro controller is heavier.
Oh, is it?
I think they're
Really?
almost the same. They're almost the same.
Oh,
But at
okay.
least swapping. You said that, and I grabbed it. I was like, I don't. I think this feels heavier, just by like a
I
tiny bit.
I take that back. I apologize. But
But
here's
no,
my
I get what
point,
you
right?
mean because like the DualShock has like a toy feeling to it sometimes,
Hmm.
right? Like it has that the kind of like plastic wiggle, which like is not a quality mark. Like they're great controllers, but
Yeah.
they're not as like hefty. This thing feels solid. Like
Yeah.
feels very very good to hold. The only problem is like the joysticks are not Hall effect.
Well, here's my ultimate point, right? And it also has back buttons that are
Yeah.
very easy to reprogram, which is nice. Here's my point. This is a what's it called? This is the GameSir Cyclone 2. Sorry, I forgot the
Hmm.
name of it for a second. Hall effect thumbsticks. You've got triggers that you can set at different heights, programmable back buttons, mechanical face buttons, which is kind of an
Oh, that's
interesting,
neat.
kind of newer trend. I believe this whole thing. I'm gonna double check my math here.
And to be clear, a dual sense, at least the standard color with no changes, is 75. If you get it
Yeah,
colored, it can go up to 85, and then obviously the DualSense Edge is like ludicrously expensive. I want to
depending
say
on where
DualSense
you
Edge is
look,
sitting at like 200.
depending on where you look, anywhere from like 50 to $60, and some fun lighting if you really want to mess around with that.
Yeah,
Now, to be fair, I do think the materials overall feel a lot nicer on this than it does in something like a GameSir. Um, I just don't understand, and especially because it has such bad repairability as well.
yeah.
I just don't
And they feel
understand
sturdy, but it's
where.
also like the sticks not being the kind that won't drift eventually.
Also, digital triggers and not analog as
Yeah, which
well.
is my actual biggest problem with this because like I don't mind games that use a digital trigger and for those who don't know a digital trigger what we're meaning is just it clicks like it doesn't
Mhm.
the trigger itself does not have travel. It doesn't have like an analog 0 to 100 as you are pulling it back. Every other modern controller does. Like every controller. In fact, I have multiple handheld gaming consoles that have this as well that are like weird little Android things that I've picked up that have analog triggers. So it's bizarre to me that the Switch does not. Like I got on the first Switch the Joy Cons not really fitting it, but like if I grab this, even with the case not here, like looks thicker because I have the kill switch on it, but this is big enough to have had an analog trigger without really altering the size that much, and I'm very
Yeah,
surprised that they did not.
yeah.
Because there are games that's really bad for like racing games are really really fun on the Switch too. I have Grid Legends on it, which is a very very good arcade racer, and it's
How
still
do they
very
get around
fun on
not
it.
not having an analog trigger? I'm assuming
It's arcade.
if
It's an
it's
arcade
grid.
racer, so it's kind of like
Okay.
you can get away with it. I don't love it, to be clear, but I
Yeah.
do think like there's a lot of games that manage to get away with it. But I don't think you could put like I think Forza would feel pretty bad on a Switch 2
Oh
because
yeah.
Forza needs the
Absolutely.
brakes. You need that brake handling, and Forza is an arcade racer still, but it's you do not want to be slamming brake and slamming accelerate. You want to be able to curve it by
Mhm.
being gentle. Um,
Yeah.
which is my only like real gripe with that controller in terms of like features that I really wish it had had. I love that it has back buttons. Even though it only
Mhm.
has the one set on each side, I think it's fine. It's
Although I'll
good
be
enough to
honest,
really help.
I haven't used them yet. Like I keep trying to think back of like what games would I really want to use with them,
Yeah,
and I haven't yet. And I'm sure that'll
I've
happen
used them in
eventually.
Cyberpunk and a few other
I can see
things,
that.
but I think that's more a case of Nintendo's games don't typically have that many controls. Um,
Yeah.
like we have Kirby Air Riders here. Kirby Air Riders has two
I
buttons.
was just about to say, yeah,
And
yeah,
really, it has one button. It just there's a second button to use a special ability, but most of
yeah.
the game is played on one button. Um, and then yeah, most of the other stuff is like I don't see where this game would really need the extra buttons for it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, overall, I think the controllers are great. I think they're much better than the Switch ones, and I already liked the Switch one's Pro controller quite a lot. They're
Yeah.
compatible as well, so you can plug in the Switch One controllers and use those for your multiplayer games because the inputs are the same.
Which is a very nice feature. I like that both my girlfriend and I, we've been
Yeah,
playing Kirby in co-op, and I like that we both get Pro controllers now,
yeah.
which is nice.
I also want to shout out like how seamless the multiplayer is on these, even with Switch One to Switch Two. It's like I've been playing a Stardew Valley co-op game with my girlfriend, and it's very easy to hook up. She still has a Switch One, and do that with the Switch Two, and just nothing. There's no problems. Like at no point do the game or the system go, "Oh, you're not using the same console."
Mhm.
Like we run into all the time with PC stuff
Yeah.
and various other things.
Game
So
share is a genuinely really cool feature, and
yeah,
it does a good job of like bridging the gap from Switch 1 to Switch 2 players. And it keeps everyone together, and especially in the economic crisis that we're in right now, it's really nice that Switch 1 players are still in a way included.
yes.
It's better than nothing.
And that's really, I think, where the pricing thing comes in. Is that like I don't think for most people a $50 price increase on the Switch determines their ability to buy it. I think it's more that like it just hurts a little bit more, and because
Yeah.
everything else is also escalatingly hurting a little bit more, um, things get really expensive really fast that way. But
Plus, I mean, the Switch already has a reputation of being an incredibly expensive console because it was the first platform to have to like break the $70 seal.
yes, yeah, I think that's very
And there were
fair.
there were even rumors that games were going to be $90, which didn't end up happening yet. But
Hey, let's hold out for GTA 6. We'll see what they do. 'Cause-
well, here's the interesting thing, right? Because one of the newer developments is that Nintendo's going to have flexible pricing. So a lot of their games are going to vary in price, but also the physical editions of games are going to be more expensive than digital editions of games, which
Mhm.
is how it used to be. I mean, most Steam games back in the day were cheaper than physical because it is more expensive to produce physical games because of the packaging and the disc and all of that. The question is, and something that they've been that's kind of unclear at the moment is, does this mean that does this mean that physical games are just going to be more expensive and digital games are going to stay at the same price, or does this mean that physical games are going to stay at $70 and
Digital is
digital
cheaper.
games are going to be 60? That's the real question, because the only games that we've really seen from Nintendo that have this pricing model is the new Yoshi game, which it doesn't really come across as, it doesn't seem like it was going to be a full price game to begin with, and neither
Mhm.
did Star Fox. Neither does Star Fox, I
Yeah.
should say. So we really have to wait for a first party, or like what we would assume would have been full price Nintendo game to see where they're going with this.
Yeah, the problem now too is like Kart, not Party Kart, has put another wrinkle in the situation because like we got Donkey Kong Bonanza over here being
Mhm.
regular full game price, and then we got Mario Kart World being $80.
Now, I want to make something perfectly clear. I don't think either of us are advocating for any game being $80. That being said, why in the Sam hell was this not $80? And if
That's
you're
my
gonna do it, it makes no sense, and that's not even a dig at Mario Kart so much. I think you and I both really like Mario
yeah, we
Kart
really like
World,
World.
but I don't see why that specifically was
I think World,
$80.
especially because World, even compared to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I would say probably has less content in it.
Which, to be
Which like
I think
I don't
it's a
mean in
new
a bad
game.
way. Like,
Mario Kart 8 has had over 10 years worth of new tracks and
yeah, and
updates
like a
and all
huge
sorts of
amount of
stuff.
DLC tracks and stuff. But I do think it's a fair comparison, being that Mario Kart 8 is like one of the highest selling games of all time. It's really up
Yeah.
there. And I don't know how World has done, but I have to assume pretty well. So I'm
They
really
don't really
curious
release
if
sales
it's like
numbers,
worked
do they?
out. I think Wyatt and I's running theory is that they priced it at 80 because they know people are going to buy a new Mario Kart regardless of what the actual content is?
I think it's two things. Well, I think it's definitely because they knew people were going to buy Mario Kart
Mhm.
regardless. Um, but I have two other trains of thought here. One of them is I don't know if Nintendo themselves really value the game at $80 if they were willing to value the game at $50 with a bundle.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, not that that's uncommon. It is very common to bundle new games with a console
It just
for
means
like a
talking about the
discounted
price of the
price.
game is hard because like the reality
Yeah.
is Wyatt and I did not pay $80 for Mario Kart. We paid the price of the bundle, which was 500 for both Mario Kart and the console.
Which for $50, hey, that's pretty
$50,
solid.
that's a steal. That's great.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also, that's some proper like girl math.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think really, uh, it's the reason
Um,
pricing discussion is always wacky because it's just hard to. $50 is not the same to everyone everywhere, and changes quite dramatically based on the time that $50 is in. Like right now, everyone I think is hurting a little bit because the economy's crazy,
yeah.
and give it like. I think if you looked back at the episode where Wyatt and I first talked about having gotten our Switch 2s and we're like, oh, well, we're enjoying a lot of the stuff and like, are we upset that Mario Kart is $80? I mean, I don't like it, but I'm not really upset about it. I think if Nintendo were to go, oh, new game $80 right now, people would be actually upset. Like, I don't think it would be the kind of
Justifiably.
like I think the reaction would be very different compared to the
Mhm.
console launch just because of the state of the economy at the moment.
Yeah.
Which sucks for Nintendo because I do think that's like not their fault, but at the same time, they're a big company; they can handle it.
I think with pricing of everything, it's both. I think
Yeah.
there are genuine like economic reasons to price things the way that they are. I also think there's corporate greed involved, and it's
Oh, for
like kind
sure.
of an excuse. It's like it's both. Both can exist at the same time. It's very understandable, and also Nintendo gonna Nintendo.
Yeah, for sure.
um,
Um, but I think the fact that like with the price increase, they're also increasing the price of the Japanese exclusive Japan only edition, which is less
oh,
expensive
that's
than
right.
buying the edition in Japan that works outside of Japan, and that to me says that it is actually hardware cost and not just like primarily corporate motivated. I think it is very much like okay, the hardware cost if they're increasing their own like cheap priced console that you can only buy in Japan and is only usable on Japanese like Nintendo accounts, uh, you are in a really weird situation because like why would they do that other than because it's just unsustainable to keep producing them at the price they've been producing.
I do think with
Um,
everything that's happening, it really necessitates some sort of like Switch 2 Lite in the near future.
yeah,
Something that's going to be significantly cheaper.
Switch 2 Lite, and I also
Um,
just want to know why Nintendo consoles are so expensive to produce because I have to assume they are because of the pricing. But at the same time, like you can get an Android handheld that is similarly spec'd to a Switch 2, or a Switch 1 at least. I don't know if they're spec'd to Switch 2s at this point. I think it's probably Android is probably not that good yet. But Switch 1 spec'd ones at a price that is below uh, that similar cost. Like the AY and Thor, I think has run about 350 to 400. Although that has also been hit by huge price increases
mhm.
because of hardware manufacturing. Okay, so they're about 400 now for the pro models, but the light model is only 250, which is pretty good.
I mean, to
Um,
give Nintendo credit, their whole setup is very custom, as is the AI,
but that said, the
as
AY
is the
and Thor has
Thor. But
analog triggers and is cheaper.
yeah,
So Nintendo,
yeah,
come on.
it's just if the world was different and yeah, it's just like a convergence of shit that unfortunately we're the ones paying for
Yeah,
more
the
so than
consumer
anything
has to
else.
pay for it right now, which is the downfall of all of this. Okay, so that's the pricing discussion. I'm gonna move us on from this because I do think like
Yeah.
the message of this whole section is that Wyatt and I are not economists. We'll leave that to the economists to figure out. We just play video games. So
Yeah.
I think that's the moral of the story. We play video games and we have opinions. So let's
Yes.
talk about having the opinions of the Switch 2. Like the original question that I'd asked was now that it's been about a year since you've had the Switch 2,
Mhm.
just under, are you happy with it? Like, are you glad that you upgraded? Are there things you wished were different? If you were to remake that decision, knowing what you know now, would you still upgrade?
Um, I think overall I'm pretty happy. I think I'm extra happy, again, not to bring back to pricing, that I'm getting it for cheaper than it will be in the future,
Hmm.
but we're gonna put that aside. I I am very happy overall because not only am I getting, new Nintendo games, but all of my old Nintendo games are just going to run better.
Just kind of work.
Um, yeah, and the compatibility overall has been really, really strong in terms of, like, everything working as it should. Um, I do wish developers could go back and just kinda unlock that frame rate. That'd be kinda
Just to go hit
kinda
that switch
nice.
a little bit. It is
Um,
funny because unlocking the frame rate is a thing that everyone complained about when games did it for the Switch One, because it typically meant your game would run under 30 when that
yep.
happened. And now that the Switch 2 is out, people are like, oh, I kind of like the games that were uncapped because now I can play them at much higher frame rates, which is very funny to me.
Yeah. I do think overall, um, I think in a lot of ways the Switch 2 isolated to its own ecosystem is in a much better place at launch after a year than the original Switch is. I think
Hmm.
that the troubles it's running into is that the category that it's in is a lot more there's a lot more competition than there was before.
Yes.
There's a lot more handheld PCs, there's a lot of, like, handheld Android devices that have, like, dedicated buttons like the Thor and that sort of thing. But I like where Nintendo is at in terms of, like, this is a platform that I think will last a lot longer in terms of
Yeah.
its power overall.
Especially for games
Um,
that aren't going for modern graphical styles or like the most modern. Like, there's some gorgeous looking games here with great art styles. Like Metroid Prime 4 is a amazingly good looking game.
no matter what you have to say
Um,
about the game itself, it
it's
looks
gorgeous.
beautiful.
It's so good looking. But it also is, it's not like a perfectly realistic art style. I think you see more with games like Hogwarts Legacy and Cyberpunk, the kind of limits
Mhm.
of the pushing of the graphics. That said, they're still quite good. Like,
Yep.
Hogwarts Legacy, from what I've seen, is perfectly playable on it, and like a not compromised edition compared to the modern console versions. In Cyberpunk, which I have played quite a lot of on my Switch, and I've played Cyberpunk on a modded PC with a 5080 in it. Like, played modded Cyberpunk on a PC with a 5080, so like I know what Cyberpunk looks like at the best possible settings. The Switch looks pretty dang good, and runs pretty dang well, with the exception that like you can't don't expect 60 frames all the time, but you do get generally 40, which I think is the
Yeah.
sweet spot for Switch 2
Well, it
of
has the
those
added
like
benefit. It has one of the added benefits of a Switch version of a game over a handheld PC
yeah,
version is that there's a lot more work that goes into actually porting the game. And
yes.
so in many instances, like, Cyberpunk is just gonna maybe run and look better than it is on a Steam Deck because it's specifically
It's a
made
console.
for
They
that
know
platform,
specifically what it's going to look like.
which is
It's
great.
also a big thing of the Switch 2 is that it has a really good implementation of DLSS.
Mhm.
And that seems to be, from my understanding of most of the like hardware analysis YouTubers and stuff that I've watched, is the thing that tends to set aside the Switch 2 from the Steam Deck, because the Steam Deck is a very custom piece of hardware that doesn't really do DLSS and other frame gen not frame gen, but frame upscaling options as well as the Switch 2 does, just because of that inbuilt really good version of DLSS. Which we see in a lot of newer stuff. Like, I've played a lot of Street Fighter on both, and Street Fighter runs at 60 on Switch 2 when you're in
Mhm.
combat, or when you're not in the like open world mode. When you're in the open world mode, it's locked to 30, but everywhere else it
Sure.
runs 60. Uh, and it is really, really indistinguishable from the mode of like playing it on PC or something. It obviously looks slightly worse, but the responsiveness and everything is great. So I
Yeah.
think that's a huge mark for the Switch 2. That's a
I do.
Final Fantasy
Oh.
VII Remake Intergrade. Looks gorgeous and runs great, which I think is the real
Is that
banger
30 or
of a
60?
combo. I think it's 60. I don't own it
No
because I've played
shit,
that game like three
really?
times, but I
You don't
believe
want
it
another
runs at
Skyrim.
60.
That's impressive. Damn. Um, what was I just looking at? God, it was like the one thing I don't have in front of me. I was shocked. Oh yeah, Pragmata runs at 60 frames. I played the demo on Switch. Perfect 60
Yeah.
frames, at least for the demo. There are some sequences in Pragmata that I feel like maybe the Switch would have a tougher time with, but I was very, very impressed. Because Pragmata is a good looking game. I played it on PS5. It's a good looking game. And obviously you can tell where they had to pare things back for a Switch port, but for a game for a high quality
Mhm.
Capcom game to be running at a perfect 60 frames per second on Switch 2, I think is very telling of what third party support is going to look like. My question though, once the new generation of consoles is out, will third parties on Switch 2 be a lot harder to port over because the average console performance is going to be like that gap is going to be a lot wider, right?
Yeah, I agree. Um, because I picked up the Resident Evil Generations pack for
Mm,
it, which is a collection of 7, 8, and 9, which was a super well priced collection. It was the price of just basically getting 9
yeah.
plus like one of the others on sale, and you get 2 extra games with it. And it was very cool, and they all
All game key
run.
cards, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, key cards. I got it digitally because I was like, I don't care about the key card. If it's a key card anyway, I'm just gonna buy it digitally.
We'll talk about the key cards, I'm sure.
Yeah, the preference is still a physical copy, but if it's a key card, I'm like, I don't want to go through the trouble of the key card compared to just getting a digital version.
Yeah.
Um, but the RE9 especially looks really really good, and the other REs are like perfect additions. Like there are no compromises that I could find in those versions compared to playing them before on other platforms. And because I haven't gone fully through 7 or 8 yet, I'm excited to actually play through those probably on the Switch. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's a great way to play those games. Which for the Switch
Even
One, there weren't many games that were multi-platform that we could say it was a great way to play that multi-platform game.
and I feel like this is a pattern with Nintendo where they always launch a console with the promise of more third-party support, but
Yes.
as the delta between whatever Nintendo just released and consoles that and the new generation that kicks off a couple years after, as especially when that
Hmm.
happens, third party just drops it unless they're making some sort of like pixel art game or otherwise like 2D game or like lower fidelity game. It
Yeah,
usually
or it's a
doesn't even
special
touch a
thing like
Nintendo console.
Rabbids or like Mario Kingdom
Yeah.
Battle, stuff like that.
I mean,
Um,
even, say what you want about Ubisoft, their Switch 2 ports have been kind of
Their
mind-blowing.
Switch One ports were also quite good most of the time. Like
Yeah.
I played Assassin's Creed 4 on the Switch One when its collection came out because I'd never played Rogue or the DLCs for 4. In that collection, it was locked to 30, but it ran great, even on the base
Mhm.
Switch One. And playing that on the Switch Two, it's even better. It just runs super locked solid. I still wish they would just uncap that frame rate, but it's
Eh,
still a great way to play it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
but I do think overall hosting third party, it's in a much, much, much better spot. We'll see what happens in a few years when new consoles are out. But I think
yes,
it's the strongest third party support that we've seen, especially in the first year in a very long
for
time.
sure. And I think a lot of it is just due to it seems like making the console just generally better has meant that there are less compromises that need to be made.
Mhm.
I do think there are still some games that have problems. Like, unfortunately, Daemon X Machina, the new Daemon X Machina, is, to my
Oh
understanding,
yeah.
quite a bad port on the Switch 2, despite it being used to
Yeah.
advertise the console a lot of the time when it was first being shown. And I've played that game on PC, and it doesn't run great on a PC, so I see why it probably has problems. So I think a lot of it's just going to come down to optimization of the console, because there are
There
certain
are a
things that I've
few,
played that are really good.
yeah. Shockingly, I was looking up apparently the new Lego Batman game is going to be capped at 30 frames on Switch 2, which is I
Which I
can't
am
tell if
more
that's
inclined to write off as laziness than
yes, I agree. Which is a
because they
shame
did the same
because a
thing for
Lego
Skywalker
game
Saga.
which is a shame 'cause, on paper, a Lego game is, like, perfect for a Switch platform because of its inherent multiplayer
The Lego games are
nature.
always great, but they always cut a weird corner. Like they always have
Yeah.
one weird thing. Like Skywalker
Still
Saga didn't have online
online.
multiplayer, which was
This one doesn't
so
either!
strange.
This one doesn't either!
I don't get why they don't do that, because you'd think it would be easier than doing
Not even as like a post-launch
local.
update
But
or anything. Oh god.
yeah, I
Anyway.
mean, I don't know. That said, yeah, I agree with you that I think the Switch 2 has overall been really good. I'm really looking forward to new stuff. I think Star Fox had a. It's hard to talk about the showing because the character designs are very controversial. I'm still not
Yeah.
100% settled on what I think about them. I don't think I have as strong of a reaction as most people do to them.
I agree. And what I will say, especially with Fox, I feel like there are good angles and there are bad angles.
Yes, like
I think if you're
there's certain
looking directly at
angles
him, it looks bad. It looks real bad. But
because
if
it
you're
looks like he
looking
has
at him
no
as like
neck. His neck's
profile,
gone.
because it's supposed to be more of like a realistic fox, you know. It's weird, but like profile shot or like from the side, I think actually looks dramatically better. I'm seeing the vision a lot more if
Yeah,
it's from the
especially
side.
when they.
It,
This is a bizarre way to say this, but when they did the bit about you using your camera avatars in game chat, and Fox like
yeah,
was looking to the side, I was like, oh, I see why that looks good. When you look to the side, and I can see the snout going
yeah.
out. Yeah, it makes sense.
You know what? Honestly, I like. You know what I hate more than the faces on everyone. They gave like Fox and Falco like more
Animal feet.
animalistic legs.
Yep.
That I'm not that I'm less
I'm
okay
less
with too.
certain about that
Now,
one.
in a game like Star Fox where everyone is sitting down in their ship and you mostly see torso up, does that matter? Kind of, because there's going to be new cutscenes with everyone where they're walking around the ship, but for the most part, not
They're
really.
from like torso up, so it still looks the same. But I'm still
Yeah.
confused as to why they made that decision. Um,
Yeah. Um no, I'm looking forward to, I mean, whatever that Zelda alleged Zelda Ocarina of Time remake is going to look like.
yeah, assuming that
Very
is
very excited
real,
for
which I
that.
would love it to be.
Or some sort of
But it
collection
is just
from
it's.
Nintendo.
We do have to say it's weird that they're remaking Star Fox a third time in a
Yes.
row, because it's been remade I think
Yes.
more than 3 times. It's now they've done the Lilat Wars I think three
It's like
times in a row,
4 or 5 times.
4 or 5 times. But I think it is literally like so it was the Switch, not the Switch, the Wii U Star Fox Zero, which I think is of the same thing, right? And then going into
There's
this
the
one,
original,
and that was the
and
original.
then there's the original, and then I think N64 was basically a remake of the first one.
Yeah.
And then there's the N64 3DS version. And then there was Zero
So not a new game,
and
which is this is still the
yeah.
confusing part with this, is because Star Fox is like people like Star Fox, but Star Fox keeps vanishing for decades at a time, and
So they keep feeling it as like, well, it's been gone for a
so we
while.
got to reintroduce Star Fox.
We got
Why
to
not
do the
make a new
remake and
game?
then new game.
But the new game part doesn't happen. So,
For
where'd the
someone
fox go?
for someone where the fox go? I think for someone who is not super familiar with Star Fox, it bothers me less just because I haven't done the Lilat Wars 4 times in a row.
Well, okay,
But
so the thing
for
that gets
returning
me is
fans,
them saying the layouts are the same, because that means it's a 1-to-1. Like, I'm okay with a remake that is like a spiritual reboot, right?
yeah,
Like, I think that's fine. It's the fact that it's a 1-to-1 remake,
you didn't
just
have
with
to do that.
cutscenes in the middle, that gets me. So I'm just like, why are we doing this
Have the same
again?
levels, maybe expand on the original levels or something, or even I
Maybe
don't.
add a
Yeah,
few.
it's
Maybe like add another route or something. There's lots of options.
honestly
There's
my
so
first
many
step would have
choices you
been,
could make.
it's if I remember correctly, there weren't a lot of the like tank missions and not a lot of the submarine missions in the N64 version. Maybe add more of those. I don't know, something.
And yeah, game's not out, so we don't know. But I do think like that's gonna be the thing that stands out the most is where more game. Where'd game go? And they added like this
Why more
multiplayer
game?
mode that does look very cool. Like I'm into the multiplayer
Mhm.
mode, but I'm also just like Star Fox is a single player series. Just give me more game, more game in my game.
I need more game. Nintendo, where's my game?
Which yeah, it's strange. I am excited for it though, because we do know it's $50 now, which feels like a much better spot for that to be at. compared to
But
it
yeah.
being full price.
And in terms of what's already come out, right? So I have a couple things here. I'm
Yeah.
not counting Kirby because that's technically a re-release. This game slaps. This game rocks. Pun intended.
How dare you slander Kirby when a new Kirby game has come out
I
on
didn't
the
buy it. I'm
console?
sorry.
Kirby
I'm
Air
so sorry.
Riders Game of the
Kirby
Year.
Air Riders is great. Anyone who says that this game was nominated for Game of the Year because there needs to be an obligatory Nintendo spot has not played this game.
Yeah,
This
Bonanza's
game
great.
this game's fantastic. It's one of my games of the game of the year last year. This was great. Um
The game that we
Metroid
can't
Prime 4.
really have a discussion.
Okay. Take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt because I am not a Metroid fan. Or not I'm not a hater.
Specifically,
I
not
just
a
haven't
Prime
played a lot.
fan.
I'm not a hater. I just don't have a lot of Metroid experience. Let's put it that way. I enjoyed myself. I don't think it's like, the greatest thing since sliced bread or anything. I think there's definitely problems with it. I also think a lot of the problems in this game are a little bit they were a little bit exaggerated overall. Um Honestly, what this felt like to me, and I think I've said this to you before, Ryan, this honestly feels more like a 3D Zelda
Yeah,
than a Metroid game because I feel like in the strictest sense of the word, you could kind of count a Zelda game as a Metroidvania because there is like unlocking tools to unlock more parts of like the map or the area that you're in. So in the strictest sense of the word, you can also count it. No one does, and you
and you
shouldn't,
shouldn't.
but
Yeah,
there's a lot of similarities there, whereas this is very similar to that in that there's not a
hmm
lot of backtracking to previous areas, but there is a lot of like, I have this now. Now I can go to this location and get this upgrade that I saw earlier, which
yeah.
feels more Zelda to me. So as someone who doesn't have a ton of experience with Metroid, this felt like a hybrid of like Halo and Zelda. And I don't know, that was pretty cool. I thought that was kind of neat. But I definitely get if you're a Metroid fan, this may not have done it for you, and I totally understand that.
hmm Yeah, I also think like to ground the discussion, Metroid Prime 4 is sitting at 80 on OpenCritic, 78 on Metacritic, and the user reviews on OpenCritic are on 90, and on Metacritic they're 7.8. So they're a little still very positive in general, right? Like
Yeah,
I would say anything above like a 6.5 is good. It's
yeah,
as soon as you hit 7, you're like, okay, pretty good, and then you hit 8, and you're like, very good. I think that's like a
very
lot
good.
of
Yeah,
the gaming like rating style. So it's still reviewed quite well. I think the thing that as someone who is like I am a huge Metroid Prime fan. I grew up playing these games. I have the living room behind me has a GameCube hooked up with copies of Metroid Prime 1 and 2 sitting nearby. So like I am a huge fan of Metroid Prime and I get why a lot of people in my position aren't as satisfied with Prime 4. That said, I still have a good time with this. I do think it is odd that this is what we got given the amount of time. But I think knowing like the behind the scenes stuff that Nintendo was very transparent about a lot of this was that like the studio changed. And it was given back to the original studio, and so it was made under very strange conditions. And I think you can kind of feel that in the end product, just because like the motorcycle's weird. It's a weird
it
inclusion.
controls fine.
It's cool. Like I like that it
Uh,
is conceptually fun, but there's like an empty open area that you use it in, and
Mhm.
that's about it. So I think there's a lot
which
of like
I
little things like that that I'm just like, okay,
which
I
I
guess that's where
stand
we go with
by.
this.
I stand by that open zone is the worst part of the game. But to me, it didn't ruin the game for me. Like, I know I've heard a lot of stories of people who stopped playing the game after they reached the open world because they hated it so much. It never ruined the game for me.
Yeah,
Um, I th
no, I agree with it. It's
it's
not like
missed
game
oppor
ruining.
it's a missed opportunity, and I will say there are times when, like, you finish a really tough boss, and then after that, it's like a cool down period of driving between locations that can feel kind of nice, especially because it controls fairly well. But it does feel empty and bizarre, and it's like, why are we here?
Just
What
to
are we
suffer.
doing?
Um, yeah, no, I think Prime 4 is just really interesting. I hope we get a Prime 5 because I think the evolution of Prime 4 could be really cool. But I
Yeah.
do think it needs to evolve in some way. Even if that evolution is bringing it closer to the originals, I think that would work. But to me, it's kind of the difference between like the Dark Souls games and then Elden Ring, where Elden
Mm,
Ring has this big open structure, right? And Dark Souls is like technically open world because you can kind of go anywhere, but they're very controlled and they kind of have that Metroidvania layout of you go through spaces and you come back and you unlock shortcuts, and then now you can move through
mhm,
areas you couldn't move through before and stuff like that. Um, and that type of level design is what I tend to associate with Prime, which is having those like interconnected pathways and shortcuts, and like it's where Metroidvania comes from. Is Metroid and Castlevania. So I think
yeah.
this is kind of missing the Metroidvania bits of it. Um, a little bit too much. Like not to say there's none of it there, but I think there's less of it than I would like. Uh,
Yeah.
in a mainline Metroid game, especially because Metroid Dread was so good at that. Like Dread had such a great capacity for doing those fun things, given very different dev teams. Like that was made by Mercury Stream and is a 2D game, so
Yeah.
not the same thing, but I think it is the same series. So I think
I
they're
also
comparable.
wonder I also wonder if the reception of this game would have been warmer if the development time was cut by half, they didn't call it Prime 4, and they had it just labeled as some sort of spin-off with, like, Prime Roots, you
Honestly, just
know?
call it like Metroid. I think Metroid Prime Beyond would have been fine. Like I think it's the four
Yeah.
is really the
Yeah.
problem.
And just say,
Because
like, "Hey, we're trying something new, we'll see what happens. It's an experiment," you know?
yeah, it's also
Um
like I've come around now to people dropping the number from a series entry when it's weird in a way that I
Yeah.
wasn't okay with before. Like
Yeah.
Black Flag Resynced is a good example if they're dropping the four because I don't think it does anything for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think Prime 4 probably would have been better received, but it also would have been less hyped. I think because like the sequel to Metroid Prime
Yeah,
three
it's 'cause
is like
so
a
much
big
was riding on
deal,
it. So
and
much was riding on it, and that's
taking
part of
that
the
four out,
problem.
yeah, is like part of the problem. That said, I still really enjoyed a lot of that game, but I do think it means like okay, let's look at our like heavy hitter Switch to mainline games, and we've really got Air Riders coming out. Air Riders 10 out
Mhm.
of 10 video game. Mario Kart World
Sorry.
9 out of 10 video game
Yeah,
compared
I
to Air Riders.
like,
I'm just throwing numbers
it
out there.
kinda
They don't mean
depends.
anything.
No. Knockout
Um,
Tour alone is a 10 out of 10.
what I will say, so actually, part of my point of this is that like the thing with Air Riders that I really like is that Air Riders has very clear and good UI design in most of the game and UX. Where like
Mhm.
Sakurai's always been great at that. Like Smash, you know what you're
Yeah.
getting into when you play a Smash game. Um, Whereas Mario Kart World is just confusing sometimes, where it's like you have to be on the title
Yeah.
menu and then hit the minus button in order to go into open world mode, which is just
Yeah.
weird because it's not
Can I
really.
I also have a question for you. Do
Yeah,
you think 'cause like, I go back and forth on this all the time. Do you think post Breath of the Wild, there was some sort of internal Nintendo mandate where they're putting more open worlds into stuff,
yes.
a lot of their
I don't
franchises?
know. I don't know if mandate's the right word. Like I think
Maybe heavily
as a game
encouraged.
designer, it is fun to be inspired by what fellow games are doing, or what
Mhm.
other game studios are doing. And Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom were very, very innovative in how they were made. And I think taking that inspired type of level design into other things is fine. But the thing is, like, it's always important to know what your design is because I think just taking an element of something and
Mhm.
going, oh yeah, we'll just take that and we'll just do that, and doing that without actually having a reason for it
Yeah.
leads to nothing, right? Like it kind of, I think Mario Kart World is gets away with it because Mario Kart World does have a reason, which is Knockout Tour. Like Knockout Tour specifically, I think is a perfect reason for there to be an open world because it is connecting all these different spaces. It's like it reminds me a lot of Burnout Paradise back in the day, where Burnout Paradise had races that ran in an open world and were like streets in that open world, and it would connect and do different circuits based on the street corners that you turned at. And Mario Kart World is kind of just that system, and Knockout Tour is a perfect mode for that. And you couldn't have done it without
Yeah.
the open world, right? So I think there is very much a reason for it to exist in Mario Kart World. But the weird thing is they then don't use it. Aside from that
And
mode, really.
the more I think about it, the more it's like there are so many little things that you could have done that requires comparatively so little effort. Like, why
It
can't
just
you
is
just
really
start
odd. Why
why
does
can't you just
Kirby
start
Air
a race?
Riders get the Smash board? Why does Air Riders get the Smash board and Mario Kart World doesn't get a Smash board? Like I think this needs Kirby Air Riders like sticker collection or something to
But
justify
like
the open worlds,
it was really
the ability to just go into the open world.
it was so funny because I was hanging out with some friends over the weekend. We were going to play some Mario Kart. We were waiting for someone to join us, and I was bored. And while we were all waiting, we were just on our phones and
Mm-hmm.
chatting. I was just driving around the open world doing stuff. And then my friend was like, "I didn't even know there was an open world to this game." I was like, "Oh yeah, you can drive around." And they're like, "Okay, what do you do?" I was like,
You go find these P buttons and hit
P
them.
switches. There's like coins. There's like peach coins. They're like, okay, what would the peach coin get you?" And I was like, you get a peach coin." But like, there's so many obvious things. Why wasn't getting costumes tied to the open world? Why can't you just start a race on one of the standard tracks from the open world? They have
Yeah.
P-switch challenges that are doing like mini races on a lot of like non-standard areas. Why didn't you have more of those? There's even it's like happened once or twice. You're like chasing after someone. You have to like chase after someone to get like a peach
Yeah.
coin or whatever.
I
And it's
mean,
like, why didn't you have more of those?
it's one of the things that gets me
It's so empty.
with specifically non-Sakurai Nintendo games is where you get it's almost like Nintendo is afraid of giving people too many choices, which I think
Yeah.
happened. I think that's a good reason that Metroid Prime 4 is the way that it is that they wanted it to be easier to understand. And like Air Riders is a very easy to understand game. Two buttons. You got two buttons. It's not
Almost to the
hard.
game's detriment at times.
Almost, I would have been a fan of splitting some of those functions to a third button because it would have been fine.
Maybe having your melee button be a button and not waggling the thumbstick would have
Like a
been
little
great.
stick. Um, but I think the benefit of that stuff is that like you can race different cars in this game, and they feel like you're playing a different video game. And
Yeah.
they're achieving that with only two buttons, which I think like is a huge good mark in Sakurai's favor. And it's also like this has tons of optional settings, tons of accessibility options, like tons of like you can load into various tracks once you unlock them just to say you want to go play only the darts minigame that happens at the end of a city trial. You can go play only the darts minigame that happens at the end of a city trial once you've done it once in city trial. And so I'm like, why are we afraid of that with Mario Kart when
Yeah.
Kirby is like doing that stuff all the time?
And again,
Um,
it's just weird because like comparatively small little changes would have made the
yeah,
open world way more. Like instead of the peach coins, they should have been optional costumes, right? Maybe
like
instead of
recolors. Like why didn't we get Smash
or
recolors?
I was thinking of something interesting where it's like instead of one thing that annoyed me is you collect coins, but then you unlock carts and stuff in a linear fashion. How cool would it have been where you
Yeah,
collect coins and then you drive to a garage and then you can get whatever carts you
give
want
us a
from the
little bit of that
garage?
Burnout Paradise loop in there. It perfected
Have it
this.
be you know what? Screw it. Have the main menu be the open world. Like maybe you can go from like you can start tracks from it or something like that. The game is
Yeah.
called Mario Kart World, and it seemed like they were terrified to like embrace the open
Hmm.
world in any way
It's really
other than
odd
Knockout
because
Tour.
like the open world is really good. Like it's really well made, and it's just
It's well
weird
designed.
that it's there and that you don't use it aside from Knockout Tour really. Um,
Yeah.
and
I
like
think
look
the
at Forza
idea
and stuff, and like Forza is hyper successful based on the open world racing thing. So there's tons of ways to make it fun.
and like an open world kart racing collectathon type thing has a
Yeah,
lot of potential. Especially for Nintendo. Like you have an open world collectathon kart racer with Mario
but
Kart
you gotta have
controls.
things
That's
to collect a thon. You got to have things
You
to
have peach
collect the
coins,
thong.
Ryan. You have peach coins.
But you need an outfit or something like Mario knew that when you're going into Mario Odyssey and you're in the little like sombrero candy world to get the cool poncho outfit, you go do things in the candy sombrero world, and then the shop is there. And you can use the resources you got from other areas, but the shop is there, and there's plenty to earn stuff in there, so you can go get that cool outfit. And World
How cool
doesn't
would it
have
have
any of
been?
that.
How cool would it have been if you went to this totally random area that's a non-standard track and it's like a little battle mode like challenge,
Yeah.
and you pepper those all over the place. It's just like I'm not saying that these are like, oh, you can do those in 2 seconds. These are such simple things. Comparatively, very simple things.
Yes.
Or like just obvious things. Very strange.
Yeah.
There I do have one more game here that I think we've both played that I did get physically.
Hmm.
Age
Yes.
of Imprisonment.
Right over there.
Bam. Uh I think I made a mistake when I played this game, and not through any mistake
I
of the
made a
game
mistake
itself.
when I played this game.
It's more I should rephrase. I made a mistake in how I played this game. I was getting to a point. I feel like I go through the same arc that I do with
Yeah.
every Muso game. I'm beginning to wonder if Muso games are just not my thing. And that might be the case, but it's hard to get myself in that mindset when I play this and for the first 10 hours or so I'm like, "Oh my god, this is fucking great. I'm having so much fun." Like canon story, which we'll get into. Um and it's got like the Breath of the Wild aesthetic. It's got all that stuff down. You're like mowing through people and you're like gaining new characters and new abilities like, "Oh, this is great." After a while it all just kind of turns into mush in my brain. And so after a while I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna power through this. I'm just
So
gonna
so
get through
I'm
the
gonna
story stuff.
I'm gonna break your preconceived notions here, and by that I mean I think the reason. So Age of Imprisonment, not Age of
Yes.
Calamity. Read the title. And to be clear, I really like this game. I think this is a really good Warriors
I
game,
don't think this
with
is
a
a bad
big
video
exception.
game.
With one big exception, especially having, because in my mind the biggest competition that this game has is Dynasty Warriors Zero, which is funky
Yeah.
because it's the same company, or Origins or whatever it's called. Um,
Yeah.
and Origins is really interesting because Dynasty Warriors Origins, like Warriors games, are normally known for huge character rosters. You have a lot of characters. You have a lot of cool weapons to play with. You have tons of maps. There's lots of reused content because you play with the characters that you want to play it with. And they're like masters of reusing that stuff. Origins is very much the opposite in that it's a highly narrative focused campaign where you play as one character with multiple weapon options, but one character, and then like play through it almost in. I don't want to use the word RPG because it isn't like a role playing game in the sense of numbers and math, but it's a role playing game in the sense of like you make choices and go do things,
Yeah.
and commit to role playing a character and like sign up with one of the three sides. And the thing that that game understands compared to a lot of the like Nintendo Warriors games, with the big exception being the original Hyrule Warriors, is that Warriors games always need a strategic layer to make the game fun, and Imprisonment and Calamity kind of don't have them. Like they loosely exist, but the games never push back hard enough
It doesn't matter.
that it matters. Whereas like Origins, you will fail missions if you are not paying attention to what's going on across the map because you go, uh-oh, they broke through the left flank and are now fighting my commander back at base, and I can't get there unless I go completely forget what I'm doing and run back that way.
Yeah.
Like in this one, you kind of just don't deal with that, and that means you're kind of just focused on button mashing. And like a lot of the reason that Warriors combat is simple is because you're also having to deal with a layer of like decision making on top of it, of like where do I go, where do I need to be, because I'm one person. Like you're one individual, you can only affect one area of the map at a time, and so I need to move to the area where I'm most effective.
I'd probably like Zero or
I
Origins or
think you would
whatever
like
it's
Origins
called.
quite a lot, and Origins is really good at that because it really drags you back and forth, and there are challenges to do in every mission, and there's like different outcomes where you can end up in. Origins has three big routes, not including the DLC. There's more in the DLC that you join one of the three factions, and then it's got hypothetical routes in which all of the factions in Dynasty Warriors in Three Kingdoms have like a moment where their plan goes bad, essentially, and like a core individual gets killed or something, and the whole story changes and becomes now about a very different thing, and like the world progressing and moving on without them. Which is a great story, but the super fun bit about Origins and some of the other Dynasty Warriors games is they have hypothetical routes where if you can go back and prevent the thing that killed that character or like solve the problem in that mission, you enter the not true history version and go into a what if scenario of like how had you done this, how would you have moved on as a faction? And Origins explores that with all three of them, which is super cool because you can do these hypothetical routes of like what if Lu Bu had been a main faction? What if Sun Ce, or I think it's Sun Ce, Sun Jian maybe, the Tiger of Jiandong had not died very early in the Three Kingdoms War. Um, what would that have happened? And you end up in a really really interesting scenario. And it's fascinating how they do that, especially Origins, because
Mhm.
Origins is depicting the very early parts, and like most Dynasty Warriors games, those characters are kind of ludicrous to the extreme because they get killed really quickly. Like the Yellow Turban Rebellion leader is absolutely insane, and in this one they make him like the Yellow Turban dude. I want to say it's Zhang Jiao. Is like a super chill, like long haired, young fellow who's just like, man, I wish this hadn't turned out this way. And it's so interesting to see this like alternative take on everything. And you just don't get that with the Calamity and Imprisonment. I still have to look at the title to remember Age of Imprisonment. That said, I still think this is a good Warriors game. Like I think the fighting is really good. I think the combat system
Yeah.
is a lot of fun, but I do think it
I
falls into that
think,
problem of there's just not that strategic layer
yeah,
to grab
I
onto.
think where my problem comes in is that in all of the areas, like we all know because we've had 2 games of it now. We all know
Yeah,
what this version of Hyrule looks like. There's so few maps. Like the amount of reuse in some of these areas to be
a lot.
becomes preposterous. Like it became so frustrating where it just felt like weird deja vu. It's like, did I do this already? Have I done this mission already?
And the thing with the regular Warriors games that makes that okay is that it's historical, right? Because multiple battles at many of these sites that pull
Mhm.
you back to the same place, and so you get to see like different aspects of the area. You're starting on different positions, and that again does not work for Age of Imprisonment.
I also feel like the game doesn't lean enough into wide open spaces, which just
Yeah,
fits Zelda more. And they also did
it also
that
fits
better
Dynasty
with
Warriors.
yeah, and I also just think it fits better with if you're going to be doing prequels to these newer Zelda games. I just think it fits better. They did it
Yeah,
more in Age of Calamity, and I thought it worked pretty well here. There's like 1 or 2 maps here that have wide open areas, and they're the best areas in the entire game. There are
yes,
also I think part of the problem is not inherently this game's fault. I just think that the time period that this takes place is really uninteresting. And I that's more fault of Tears of the
Tears of the
Kingdom,
Kingdom. Yeah,
which is like, you don't have a lot to
there's a reason
of
you're
really
not playing
interesting
that time period in
like
Tears of the
like
Kingdom.
and part of that problem is so many characters that I have never heard of before, no one's ever heard of, and they're the most boring motherfuckers on the planet. I have a list here I have a list here of all the other characters that aren't like Zelda, Rauru, and Minoru, and like the
Mhm.
sages, right? Who the fuck are these people? Who's Quino? Who's Lago? Who's Cadlin? Who's Breton? Who's Pastos? Who are these fucking people? You didn't even remember them until I said their names.
I still
And they're
don't
just
remember
so
them.
boring.
To be
Yeah,
very truthful about you said their names, and I don't remember who they are.
the only ones I remember are Shalani and Ranza,
Oh
the 2
yeah,
Gerudos, and because their moveset's really cool.
and
But but
so that's
like
one of the things is Warriors games, because like it's just nonsense names for the most part. At least to an English speaker,
mhm,
like the names are not nonsense, but it's a lot of names, and it's a lot of like historical names of people that we don't have any
yeah.
reference for. So like hearing Zhang Jiao, Zhang Fei, like all these other names next to each other, you kind of blur them all together. But Warriors is great because it gives them all weapons that are unique. At least in the best ones, they have
Mhm.
cool individual weapons. And so you associate, oh, Zhang Fei's to do with a huge claw, like huge, like gauntlet hand fist weapons, and and stuff like that. So you kind of build an
Yeah.
association with their weapons. Um, and so
And
moveset is important because like then you'll remember the moveset.
yeah.
But something that I'm really surprised they didn't do in this one, and I'm like I get it because it doesn't fit the setting as well, but one of the most brilliant things about the original Hyrule Warriors is the adventure boards where you have like little challenges that you
Yes,
do in this like
that was so
board
cool.
game because each of the missions are really short but they're really focused, and so you go do these like things to
Yeah.
unlock a pathway, which is like it adds that strategic layer back in that you don't have in a different way than the main Warrior series. Like it feels way different than the main Warriors. So it was super unique, and I will still go play that mode in the OG Hyrule Warriors because it's super fun.
And that also had the benefit of being its own story, which, to be
Yeah.
clear, was stupid, but it had an excuse to bring in Zelda characters across all games and all timelines, whatever.
Yes.
Which is kind of half the reason you play a Warriors game is to have all of these people that you recognize,
Get the
especially when
gang
it's a
together.
licensed one. Yeah, like, the Fire Emblem games do that, and that sort of thing, but then again, you're stuck in the Age of Imprisonment, and you have the 4 sages, you have Zelda, and then you have, like, a weird mechanical stand-in for
Yeah.
Link who was actually pretty cool, he was fun. And I also liked his Korok buddy. They were the best parts of the game.
Yes.
Um, but it's just a story that like d- you don't really care about.
Hmm.
And my other thing is like the menu is the map of Hyrule with all these missions, all this little stuff, and there's a little flavor text of like if you donate these resources to this, then you do this little thing for this town. All that flavor stuff is cool, but there are so many of them. There are so many. Like if you thought an Ubisoft map had a lot of icons, it has nothing on
Yeah.
like the main map screen in Age of Imprisonment. Oh my god. There's so many little things, there's so many resources. There's so like it all just kind of
Blurs together.
blurs together and it doesn't. I just wish that they had cut the roster to, like, the Sages and a few other people and just focused on that more. It just felt like they were going for a lot of
Yeah.
content without really putting a lot like, quality behind it. Now, I will say, some of the cutscenes go pretty hard. There's some pretty cool stuff, especially near the
Hmm.
end. Um, I will also say, speaking of Star Fox, the straight up Star Fox flight sequences are rad as hell.
Right.
Those are cool. I wish there were more, to be honest, to add more kind of
Yeah. Look.
variety
I
to the
always love wacky
proceedings.
stuff like that. But I do kind of want to go through off of the heels of this because I think that both of us are in agreement. Like Age of Imprisonment, fun game, maybe didn't stick for the longest amount of time, but I do think it was like
Yeah.
I feel like I got my money's worth out of it,
If
even
you're
if I
really into
didn't.
Muso games,
Yeah.
it's good.
Well,
You're gonna
that's
have a
the
good time.
problem with saying if you're really into Muso games, because like as I said, I think a lot of people that are really into Muso games are into that the combination of fun combat with the strategic layer. That is like it's
Mhm.
never as hard as an RTS or something like it. Muso is always going to be an easier series than many other things, but you need something to make you make decisions while you're playing, and Age of Imprisonment
Yeah.
just doesn't really do that.
Also, there's
Um,
too much noise. People are talking too much,
yes.
and you pull off abilities, and they have to say something every time you do a combo, and boy, it got to me. I felt like I was starting to hear him in my nightmares.
Which is weird because that's not all. Like Warriors games don't normally do that, so I don't know where that one came from. Um, but yeah, the thing I want to do is go through like what are the actual major Nintendo releases that
Sure.
we've played in this year. And so like we went through Age of Imprisonment, and again, not developed by Nintendo. This was done by I believe one of the
It's a
Koei teams that works on Dynasty Warriors.
AAA
Um,
game studio.
yeah, well,
Is that
one
really
of
what it's
those
called?
resistant teams.
It's literally called AAA Game Studio. I'm
That's
not
incredible.
kidding.
I love that. Yeah, I looked at the back. I was like, "Yep, it does say
That's
that."
great.
Um, so that's our big like we'll count that as a Nintendo game for the sake of this. Air Riders, which I think is like Air Riders and Mario Kart World are the two that I would consider just like generally huge successes, even with the complaints that we've had against both
Don't
of
forget
them for
Donkey
other
Kong.
reasons.
Don't forget
Prime
Donkey Kong.
4, yeah, Donkey Kong I'm saving for last
Huge,
because Donkey Kong I
fantastic
think is the
success.
like Donkey Kong's the system seller, right? To me
Yeah,
at least. Whereas I think a lot of us were hoping that Prime 4 would be the system seller, but Prime 4 I don't think is good enough to be that. I do think it's very good and fun
it's
to play
fun.
through, but
It's
I
fun.
don't think it's like it's not on the level of like a Halo or other thing that would sell. To me, I wanting to play Prime 4 is not enough for me to buy a Switch 2. Wanting to play Donkey Kong Bonanza is enough for me to buy a Switch 2, I think. Like that's how I would
Yeah.
phrase it. Where like if I'm thinking of any game that has made getting the Switch 2 worth it to me, it is Bonanza, and bizarrely, and Wyatt, I think you're gonna hate what I'm about to pull up. But bizarrely, it is also Pokemon ZA.
I don't know. I get it. I get it. Sure.
Because like I was look, I don't love Pokemon games anymore. I'm one of the people that I much prefer Monster Hunter stories generally. The combat system of Pokemon ZA is just enough to get me back in. And
We're
like
also
there's
forgetting
cut
Pocopia.
corners. Well, Pokopia, I don't have a physical copy of Pokopia to show. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, I would put for me the actual ranking is like Bonanza, Air Riders, Pokopia are the system
Mhm.
sellers. Um, with a handful of other things that kind of are non-Nintendo things making up a big section of other stuff. And Pokopia 2 is also not a Nintendo game. Like that's made by the Dragon Quest Builders team. It's a
Mhm.
Nintendo licensed game, but is not Nintendo's internal teams. So,
So I have a list here
mhm.
of Nintendo Switch 2 like exclusives. Like not gonna find it on any other platform. A couple
Yeah,
of these
no.
here I haven't heard of, right? So we've talked about these. There's Drag X Drive. I have not played Drag X
Yeah,
Drive.
neither one of us has played Jackass Drive. We
Um,
haven't played Welcome
e
Tour. Maybe that sells some
yep.
systems.
I've heard no. I heard Fast Fusion was pretty good. I haven't
I
played
have played
Fast
Fast
Fusion.
Fusion. Is that Nintendo? Or is that a third
I don't think it's
party
Nintendo, but
exclusive?
I think it's exclusive
It
to
is
the
an
Switch 2,
exclusive to the Switch 2. I did
I
pick that up
think.
because I played the original Fast game when the Switch 1 came out, and that game is really good. So I'm
Mhm.
sure Fusion is also great.
Let's see. Mario Tennis Fever.
I
I heard it was good.
I never played it. I
There's
can't
like
say
it
anything.
looked like there was like an adventure mode that seemed kind of interesting. I don't know if I want to spend $70 on a tennis game. I'm gonna be upfront with you on that, but it
Yeah, for
seemed
me
kind of
that's more the
interesting.
thing. If Tennis Fever were 50 like Star Fox, I would buy it. I think that would be low enough for me to go after it. Um,
I on the list here it says that Orbitals is a Switch 2 exclusive, and I
I think it is
don't.
at least timed
Is it
exclusive.
timed exclusive? Oh wow, okay. That didn't seem right, but all right, that's fair enough. Which looks great. Um,
Hmm.
very much looking forward to that. Pocopia, like we said, that's been a huge success, like a surprise
Yeah,
success.
knockout success. Pokopia to me is truly like, in Pokopia, I also finished Pokopia and stopped playing, but there are
Mhm,
hundreds of hours of things to do in that game. Should you
mhm,
really want to treat Pokopia like Animal Crossing and keep playing it every day, like
mhm,
for me, it's just I don't have the time to do that. But I think plenty of people would love to play Pokopia that way. Um,
mhm.
yeah,
I'm skipping some things on here because I don't think we'll have much to say about Pool Room Billboard.
I think you're right.
Yeah, yeah. The only other thing, because there's a couple things on this list that aren't out yet. Tokyo Scramble, which I have not played yet. I don't know. That seemed like something maybe more up your alley. I don't know if that's something you've gotten around to yet or not.
Maybe remind myself of what Tokyo Scramble is because I do remember this
Um,
name.
it's that like horror game where you use your phone to like hack into stuff to like escape
Oh,
monsters.
yeah. See, I I get it. I might like it. The problem with Tokyo, okay, whoa. Apparently, Tokyo Scramble is sitting at a 42 on
Oh no.
Metacritic.
Oh no.
Okay, so not great. I think
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
rough thing for Tokyo Scramble is that Resident Evil 9 is on the Switch too, as well as
Truly
most of the
unfortunate
Fatal
timing.
Frame games, and all the Fatal Frame games I think are
Yeah,
that experience but better.
yeah.
Um,
I think that's every like Switch 2 exclusive that is
yeah,
out.
there's a couple other things
Um,
like because if both of our stance is that like, hey, we really enjoy our Switch 2 and are not regretting having spent the money on it. I think
Yeah.
to back that up, the things that for me have made it worth it, aside from the like Bonanza, Kirby Air Riders, and Pacopia being big exclusives, are a number of third-party releases that I think are best experienced with Switch 2, being like
Mm.
Factory Guardians of Azuma is super good. I
Mm.
think this was
Mhm.
actually the first game that I bought for my Switch 2 because it was one of the only games available near launch with a physical copy. Um, and it even has a little manual. It came with a secret special report
Oh
on
my god.
Azuma with like a proper game manual.
That looks like it's a color too.
No, it's color printed and it's nice and it just fits in the case right above the thing. Like I
Man,
love that.
what a
This is
rarity.
one of the
What
best
a
like physical
rarity.
editions I had, along with Cyberpunk having um, its like little physical welcome note and like stickers and stuff.
Mhm.
But the handful of games that have actually put things in there have been really good. Rune Factory is super good. I think Rune Factory Guardians of
Yeah.
Azuma is if you are wanting, if the idea of farming games makes you like, oh, I like the concept, but I don't like farming. Play Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma because you farm for 2 minutes, and
I
the
think
rest of
that
it is combat
I
and
do
like
think I'd be
town
into that
building.
game because I like town building and farming when it's in service of something else and
Well,
not the
see, the
whole.
great thing with it is it's you automate all of the farming stuff by like building the town. So you
Oh,
build out, you put like your farmer's hut there, and then they can go do the chores, and so you don't have to do the chores, and you can do the chores manually if you want to, but you
mhm.
really do not have to. And you can like automate not in the sense of like factory game automation, but in the sense of like I am Pacopia's kind of style, where you're like, okay, I have a character that can go do this for me, and then I don't have to worry about it. You also get
Mhm.
to fly a dragon around, which is sick as hell.
I mean,
Uh,
who doesn't love that?
and
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's just a great time. Um, there's a handful of other really cool Switch 2 editions. Romancing Saga 2. This is the Switch
Mhm.
1 version of the game, but it has a Switch 2 edition, and it's super fun. These two are both really just like the Switch 2 version uncaps the frame rate. They look gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Like these games are an art style where there's no compromises on the
Mhm.
Switch 2 compared to the other platforms. Um, there's a handful of others. I think Octopath actually doesn't have a Switch 2 version, but I think looks great now that handheld boost is out as a handheld
Mm.
Switch game. Specifically the second one. I don't love Octopath 1, but I do really like Octopath 2. And I know Zero is also out that I haven't played yet. Story of Seasons, Grand Bazaar. This is just a proper farming game.
Mhm.
If you like this, it's a great pick. It's one of the best Story of Seasons games.
To add to that list, Fantasy Life, I
Also,
think, is a great, uh
the thing
what's
to identify the good games is if they have a manual, because this also
that?
has a manual. Um, so yeah, I agree too. Fantasy Life is fantastic.
Mhm.
That I would say is probably the most played Switch 2 game I have. Trails in
And
the
I think
Sky, first chapter,
I th
and
mhm.
soon to be second chapter have Switch 2 editions.
What I think too has improved, like, one of my stances that I think has improved a lot since launch, Nintendo had this weird thing at launch where they weren't giving out a lot of dev kits, which was very
Yeah,
strange,
pre-release there were very few games.
which means, yeah, you had very few Switch 2 games, and it's like, "Oh, well, just make a Switch 1 game, and then it'll be playable on Switch 2." It's like, "Okay, but you can't."
Yeah,
But anyway,
like
I
that is
think
why I have copies of Cyberpunk and Rune Factory because these were legitimately some of the only Switch 2 launch releases that had physical copies.
yeah.
Because like
I
Mario
do
Kart
think
World, I got in the bundle. So
I do think that has improved quite a bit. If you go
yes,
onto the eShop and you filter Nintendo Switch 2 games and what's available now, the number is currently 131. Now, that does include third party, it includes like
hmm
games that are upgrades, like or like a Switch 2 edition or whatever. Um, but I think for 1 year, that's pretty good, especially
yeah,
for like something like the Switch. And to add on to what else we've been playing, I think Switch is the best way to play roguelikes, specifically Ball Pit. Dude, Ball Pit goes
both of us
hard on
went
the
ham on
Nintendo
Ball Pit on
Switch.
the Switch too.
Dude, I unlocked New Game Plus for Ball Pit like last week. I went hardcore. Dave the
Yeah.
Diver also has a free Switch 2 upgrade, and Dave the Diver is a great platform for that. One thing I'm going to be playing pretty soon. I haven't picked it up yet. I'm kind of waiting for a sale if there is one, but
Mhm.
Haste I think would be a great
Yeah,
has a
Haste would
great
be super
home
good.
on the Nintendo Switch. Any of the tribute games beat 'em ups I think are great too.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through
Like
a couple of things too, like Absolem. As you're speaking of beat 'em
yep,
ups, uh,
yep,
Absolem, not even a Switch 2 version. It's a regular Switch game, but it looks gorgeous on handheld with the docked boost.
runs perfect.
It runs perfectly. Like, I think that to me is a lot of things. Even if it doesn't have a Switch 2 version, if I would be Wyatt and I talked about this, and I was like, sometimes when I picked up a game on the Switch One or considered picking it up, I had to be worried that it would actually function. Like, not
Yep.
even that it would look good or run well, but that it would baseline function like I expect it to. And I have
Yeah.
yet to have that concern with the Switch 2 game. I think that's really good. There's also a handful of, like, I think cool indie things that have come up. Vampire
Mhm.
Crawlers. I've been playing a bunch of Vampire
Yeah.
Crawlers on the Switch 2. That game's dirt cheap.
That
It's
game's
super fun.
I was about to say dirt cheap. I do plan on playing it at some point.
Yeah, it's super interesting. It just doesn't play like anything else I've played before. Um,
Plus
one,
I got to shout out Hades 2.
oh yeah,
Has a Switch 2 edition. Incredible,
looks great.
incredible game. Looks great.
Um, one of the games from a couple years ago that I really wanted to play but never did because I wanted to play it on Switch, but the Switch One version didn't seem that great. Was Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which is a puzzle game,
Oh,
um,
right.
and it just got a Switch Two version very recently that I picked up.
Mhm.
UFO 50 is on the Switch as well, and that's a great,
Yep.
like, huge collection of games to play. The most bonkers game I've played in a while, Inazuma 11 Victory Road, has a Switch 2 edition, and that is a football JRPG where you are playing football slash soccer across the
Oh,
world,
right.
and
Forgot about that.
it has the most insane mechanics I've ever seen, and I think that game is absolutely bonkers. It's hard to be because like I don't recommend it if you're a sports fan because it isn't sports. Like
Yeah.
it's not
You
sports.
recommend it to people who don't understand the point of a sports game.
I like it to people who like the idea of a sports anime but don't like sports. I think that's the target audience. Um, and also
Uh,
like bizarre rock paper scissors JRPG combat. Hollow
mhm.
Knight Silksong was a day
Oh,
one
yep.
pickup Switch 2 for me, and that is super good. Runs
Absolutely.
perfect. Now that it's fixed, the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Anniversary Edition on the Switch 2 is eating
Uh-huh.
time like I would
Uh-huh.
not prefer because
Ooh.
I like having my Switch 2 Skyrim save. I'm also currently playing two separate Skyrim mod lists. It's a problem.
Ryan, I think you
Um,
have a problem. I think you have a
look,
problem.
another game that we've played before for Games Pass that I've been wanting to pick up for the Switch is Core Keeper. I think Core Keeper would be a super fun Switch
Yes.
2 game. It has a
That would
Switch
be
2
great.
edition.
Speaking of
Um,
roguelikes, that would because it just works well for the
yeah,
platform. We've been playing a bunch of Dead Zone Rogue, and it has a Switch 2
absolutely.
version, which I think would be great. Not that I would want to play a shooter on especially like the
I
Joy-Con
think if you're
thumbsticks,
pressed for
but
wanting a shooter, you Dead Zone Rogue is about as good as you can do. I think
yeah,
not in like a bad way, but in like that game's really good.
yeah.
And I think will lend itself to Switch form factor fine. I don't own it there because, like Wyatt, I prefer to play those on PC, where
Mhm.
I've got my mouse and keyboard at the ready. Um, there's a bunch of others. Dread Delusion has a
Oh yeah,
Switch 2 version, and that game is phenomenal. I really like the Switch 2 version, especially because Steam Deck that game doesn't run super well. You can get it running, but
really?
it's a little bit finicky.
Mm,
I have managed to get it running at a point where I consider it acceptable, but I would rather run it on the Switch 2 where it's just good. Like,
sure.
um, I think Dread Delusion just lends itself better to
Mhm.
running on the Switch 2 than the Steam Deck. Even though it does run on the Steam Deck, I think the Switch 2 version's better.
There's
Pragmata
also
and RE9.
shockingly great on Switch 2.
Yeah,
There's also I think any like local multiplayer stuff is a great Switch pickup. Like there's a Switch 2 version of Overcooked 2. Perfect.
I'm also
I
at
think
this
that would be
point. I've just made
perfect.
the realization that I got to play Elden Ring Tarnished Edition and Borderlands 4 on the Switch 2, both of which we don't know when they are releasing.
Oh yeah. Well, they delayed indefinitely the Borderlands
The
4
Borderlands 4
port, if I
one, I
remember.
might have played something that will never release, given
How does that feel?
which is bizarre. I'm surprised it didn't because when I played it, it was running pretty well. Although I guess it was they put us in one of the dungeony bits and not in the open world, so I imagine it was the open world
Oh
not
yeah.
working. Um,
Oh, surprisingly, I heard Chronos: The New Dawn had a really good Switch port.
yeah, that game looks super fun. Marvel Cosmic Invasion, very good Switch game.
Yeah. The Scott Pilgrim game, but from Tribute Games,
Yes.
also very good for that as well. I think the point that we're making here is that I think there's a lot to play after 1 year. I have seen comments where it's like, oh, there's nothing to play on Switch
Hmm.
2, and I truly don't understand where that mentality comes from. Like, okay, maybe there aren't a lot of first party Switch exclusives, but it's the first year. I think for year one of a console, there's a pretty
Yeah.
decent amount of first party Nintendo stuff. And, maybe the quality is a little all over the map. But I mean,
I
just
think the bigger
Donkey
thing is
Kong
there's a
Bonanza
huge lineup
alone.
of Switch 1 first party games that didn't necessarily run that well.
Absolutely.
Like you've got Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, super good
Absolutely.
game.
Has
That I
become one of my favorite Zelda
Yeah,
games after finishing it. Love that game.
Super Mario Party
Um,
Jamboree had
yeah.
a cool mode, and like I think the upgrade for that one is a little weird, but playing it on the Switch 2 where it just runs super well is very fun.
I would say that's probably one of the weakest upgrades.
Yes. Yakuza Zero Director's Cut, which I'm still intending to play that through that game again when I have the time, because man, Yakuza Zero is such a good game.
Yeah.
Um, and the mode that they added, which is like a beat 'em up mode where you play various characters from the series and just running through like crazy beat 'em up levels, is super fun, and I love that that mode
Sounds
is
about right.
there.
Sounds
Uh,
about right.
One of the really fun, more recent. I think this one kind of falls into port because it's a re-release of an older JRPG, but it is a by far the version I would recommend, which is East 10 Proud Nordics, which is
Oh
Nordic
yeah.
pirate JRPG action game with
Man,
AC4 ship combat.
man, that
Um,
sounds so rad.
Heavily recommended. I think the E series is always super fascinating because they're generally really well written, but in a way that is kind of annoying. Makes sense. The intros are always
Huh.
a little annoying because they're a little prosy. They're very there's a lot of words
Oh,
in
yeah.
E's, not in like a hard to understand way, but in a you're gonna be reading a fair amount before the game really lets you off the rails, to go do whatever you
Sure.
want. But once you get off the rails, it's a lot of fun. Subnautica has a Switch 2 edition, which is great if you like survival
I just picked that
games.
up actually because it was on sale. It was on deep, deep sale
Yes,
recently.
and yeah, just a lot of stuff like that. Like I think there's tons of cool things in there, and just the fact that it's
There's
so cross compatible,
Mhm.
with Switch One libraries, I think is such a huge success. I'm still holding out for that Xenoblade 3, Switch
Yeah.
2
Well, apparently
edition.
the Chronicles X upgrade has been a bit of a rocky
I
bit of a
have
rocky
thought it
road.
is largely fine,
Okay. I haven't played it yet.
but also like the trade-off, it looks a little bit more DLSS-y for the sake of 60 FPS than the playing the Switch One
mm.
version on the Switch Two does,
Would
but
you
I think
still
that 60
prefer it over
frames.
playing Switch One version?
Yeah, because I would rather have the frame rate. And like it's not a huge difference to me. I think it still looks fine.
Okay.
Um,
But
and
I
yeah,
think
the game is super great. So
but I think overall, after almost a year, 131 games that some of them on here are like game of the year contenders or were
yes,
game of the year contenders. I think there's a lot of good variety here. I think there's strategy, there's action,
and
there's like
that's
chill
without even
games and stuff.
mentioning the like beefy Switch One upgrades, like the Kirby upgrade, which is Kirby Forgotten Land upgrade,
Yeah.
which is quite beefy. You've got the Zelda upgrades, which like if you were holding out on playing Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, absolutely go do it on the Switch 2. Like
Yeah.
they're phenomenal experiences on that platform now. And yeah, I think that really is the thing to me of like I no longer am worried if I pick a game up on the Switch 2 if it's going to run and be fun.
Yeah,
And it's also
with
just a
some
great,
weird exceptions.
yeah, with weird exceptions, but generally you can tell that it's the fault of like bad porting and not the fault of
Yeah.
the Switch 2. Because like in my opinion, if Hogwarts Legacy looks good and runs well on the Switch 2, most games should look good and run well on the Switch 2 if they're
Yeah.
ported. It's Cyberpunk runs. Like CDPR really knows their stuff with optimizing that game after the kerfuffle that it went through about being unoptimized at the start. So I'm sure that helped. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think overall there's lots of really good options. Divinity Original Sin 2 Switch 2 edition for folks that liked Baldur's Gate 3. There's a great huge CRPG to go play, like a turn-based
Yep.
RPG that is super fun. Um, Red Dead has a Switch 2 edition, the original Red Dead, and if you didn't get to play that, absolutely go play that.
Yeah.
It's lots of cool stuff like that. Rogue Prince of Persia is one I've been playing a bunch.
Plus, if you don't really like AAA stuff, it's a great place for indie games too. I mean, Mixtape just came
Yes.
out and has a Switch 2 version. Darwin's Paradox just came out, and then that looks like a lot of fun as well. I mean, like we were just talking about, all the tribute
Hmm.
games are great. Mini Shoot Adventures, which I actually really enjoyed, has a
Yeah, I've
Switch
been
2
meaning to
version.
pick that up for ages.
Rotwood, which I've heard pretty good things about. Yeah, I just again, I think it's a good number of games. I think it's a good variety of games, both the first and third party, and just like a good variety of genres in general.
Hmm.
Um, it's just it's strong, and you can make the argument that, like, well, a lot of these are older games that are just getting Switch 2 editions, but a lot of those are games that maybe Nintendo fans, people who only have a
Yes.
Nintendo console, have never played before.
And also
It's
put out
why.
like there's a genre of games we don't talk about a lot, which is yearly sports games, because most of us don't play them,
Yeah.
with one exception of I have become the person to play the WWE
Mhm.
yearly releases, typically a couple months
Yeah.
after they release and are cheaper. The Switch 2 got a port of WWE 2K25 when it was like very new, and the port of that is phenomenal in a bizarre way where like the Switch 1 had gotten a version of that game, I think, when it released, and the issue with it is it just didn't have any of the content. Like, they cut out a whole bunch of the stuff that you could do. 2K25 was just the whole game, like everything you expected, and it looked great the whole time.
Mhm.
And it happened to be the entry where like 2K kind of figured out how to do a WWE game that is fun again, and not just do the yearly update
Hallelujah.
mandatory thing. And to my understanding, 2K26 is also great, and that has also released on it. So you've now got your yearly sports game fixes being not compromised like they were before. Um, like Madden's coming to it too, so I'm sure you've got some fun stuff there if you like those games.
Mhm.
Hell, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is coming, and that's sick.
Which is wild.
Yeah, I
That's
never finished that game. I
absolutely
would love to play it
crazy.
on Switch to see how it
I mean,
runs, but
there's a lot of upcoming stuff too, like 007 First Light is getting a Switch 2 version. That's crazy
yeah.
to me.
But all
That's
this to say
insane.
that, yeah, it's I think the Switch 2 in a way that the Switch 1 was not makes a convincing argument for being, if even if you only want to own one console or you don't have a gaming console, you can still play most of what you want on the Switch 2.
Yeah.
And I think that will help immensely compared to just being like, hey, go pick up a $900 PS5 and
Yeah.
play that. Um,
Yeah.
Even with the
Absolutely.
price hike, it's still about $150 cheaper than the next best options. Um,
Even in this fucked up world we live in, it's still the cheapest option.
yeah,
Or like one of the cheaper options.
yeah. It and the Series S are
Uh,
basically your only competition at the price range, and with the Switch 2, you're getting a portable thing. So like,
and you're getting Nintendo
hard to
first
beat this
party.
form factor. And yeah, first party Nintendo games, which are great. So I think it's really been worth it for me.
Mhm.
And I'm looking forward to new releases on it. I don't think it is going to replace buying things on PC or like PS5 for major new releases for me. Just because like
Yeah.
I still think the PS5, even the base PS5 that I have, or the PC that I normally use, like those are less compromised systems in general. But I also know I'm only going to be playing them when I'm sitting at my desk or my TV setup in the apartment, and not when I'm just traveling or doing anything else or on a plane.
Yeah.
And so having the Switch 2 as an option is great. And also, the biggest system seller of the Switch 2, even though it's not a Switch 2 game, it's a Switch 1 game, Tomodachi Life.
Yeah, yeah.
Tomodachi Life is one hell of a system seller. If you don't own any Nintendo stuff, buy a Switch 2 and play Tomodachi Life for 20 minutes, and your life is just going to be better. It's going to be hard not to
Well, and
smile after that.
yeah. Well, and there's an interesting thing that I've been thinking about recently. I've been getting back into buying physical media recently because the concept of not owning your games is
Hmm.
scaring me the older I get. And to a certain extent, one of the issues that you have on Nintendo's platform is that even if it's a physical game, even if it's your console that you spent $450 to $500 on, they can just brick it whenever they want. And that is an issue. But as someone who's trying to buy more physical media recently, part of the reason that collecting physical games for Switch 2 is so much fun is because
Hmm.
in a perfect scenario, it is the perfect physical version of a game to buy. And I say
Yeah.
that because you're getting a physical version of a game. You are getting a game, especially because it's Switch 2, that hopefully runs at a decent frame rate and looks really nice. And you're also getting a game that you can play on both your TV and on the go without compromising any kind of performance between switching from TV to handheld. It's just, in many ways, it's like buying the perfect version of a game because it satisfies everything. You're
Yeah.
getting a home game, you're getting a handheld game, you're getting a physical copy of a game that looks and runs well, almost as well as other versions of the game. And that's why it's so much fun to get physical games for because like I said, it hits every box and it becomes the perfect way to play a game. Now,
Yeah.
because it's the Switch 2, it can get complicated with, even if you own a physical version of a game, they can still take that license away in many instances, or maybe a game doesn't run as well as you want it to. But if every
Game key
box is
cards.
checked, game game key cards. But if every box is checked, it's like the perfect platform to get your game for, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
No, I agree.
that being said, game key cards. I don't know if there's a whole lot to say other than they suck and I don't like them.
Ubers is my thought.
um, yeah, I from what I understand, the reason that you pick game key cards, if you're a publisher, developer, whatever, it's cheaper. But also, there are instances where the memory is not as fast as if you were to download the game. It's
Yeah.
like the only reason that Ubisoft was able to get, if what they say is to be believed, it's the only reason that they were able to get Assassin's Creed Shadows and Star Wars
Outlaws.
Outlaws on the Switch 2 is
Which, to
because
be fair, I played a big chunk of Shadows on the Switch too. I've actually played more Shadows on the Switch too than I've played on the. I picked up like the Ubisoft Plus thing on PC to
Mhm.
try it out on PC and had a. It worked fine, but the Switch 2 version I think was, even being a not 60 FPS version, worked really well and was rock solid
Yeah.
compared to what I was expecting, and seems like a perfect way
Plus,
to play that game.
if you're playing a game portably, 40 frames is a lot easier to forgive because it's a smaller screen and you
Yeah,
don't really notice
it's
it as
also just
much.
like when you're considering the beef of a game that you're playing on a handheld, like the
Yeah.
meat ratio of that game. I think it's hard
Meat
to do better
ratio
than an Assassin's Creed game, um,
in terms of meat.
in terms of
Correct.
like, in terms of if you want to play the triple A-est of triple A games, you want to play quadruple A game
Oh, careful. Ryan, be very
until they
careful.
put Skull and Bones on the Switch.
Oh
um,
no.
but I have the big. I mean, like, if you want to play that like
Yeah.
triple A experience, I think the fact that those games are running well on Switch too, like Pragmata, RE9, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Star Wars Outlaws, like that stuff running super well, um, is a really good sign, especially for I think a lot of people that have skipped the non PlayStation or not non Nintendo consoles this last generation, and are like, oh, I only had a PS4, I only had a PS3 and an Xbox 360 or an Xbox One. Um, are now going to have a lot of options on the Switch 2 that they wouldn't have had before. That will be really fun to play through. So
Yeah. My last thing with key cards
we
is
gotta complain about them.
because I again, it's like I like collecting physical games for Switch too, but it is the like it is like the biggest issue in terms of getting my perfect port.
Yeah.
The only thing we can do is just not buy them, and hopefully that will send the message that we want physical games for the Switch too, and what needs to happen is that these cards need to have better memory, and there has to be a way for them to have faster memory in a
I
card. I'm
also
sure it'll
will
be more
say
expensive.
I found about a game very recently that is making the Switch 2 the most anticipated console to have ever owned, which is they are releasing a re-release of the first Cold Sept game.
Cold Sept?
And I believe I told you about this when I was talking about AY and Thor, because I've been playing Cold Sept, the 3DS game, through the Thor, and Cold Sept is a Monopoly JRPG. It's Monopoly mixed with Magic the Gathering, essentially. And it is one of the most insane sets of games. Like, it's an Inazuma
Okay.
11 territory of bizarre, uh, in just a way that like there is so little comparable to this. The fact that one is going to exist in the Switch 2 is great. I can't wait.
I still love that I was there to see, not in person, but over video, your reaction when they announced a new Fantasy Life game. That is still one
A
of
new
my
Fantasy
favorite
Life and a
moments.
new Brigandine game. I think you got my reaction to that
Yeah.
too, which Brigandine's insane. The only thing that may make it better is if it wasn't a game key card. But yeah, I think
But
there's
yeah,
a lot of cool
just to
stuff
wrap
coming.
up the game key card, if you're upset like most of us are with game key cards, just don't buy them. Refuse to buy game key cards and just get digitally, and hopefully that will send the message that we don't want this.
Yeah, we
If
would
they
prefer they are not key cards.
Because from what I understand, they have not sold well. Like game key card versions of games have not sold very well. Um, so hopefully that's enough of a message to be like, hey, we don't like these,
Mhm.
get these out of here. but um, but yeah, they suck in a very not interesting way. They suck,
Yeah.
and it ruins physical collecting.
Yeah. No, I agree. Um, all right. Well, that's a huge rundown of our Switch 2 thoughts, I think. We've
Yeah,
hit upon most
yeah.
of the things. Generally positive. Game key cards suck.
hmm
More first party Nintendo games, please.
And
Seem
then
to be the running
price
threads.
wise, things are complicated and shit is fucked up, and so it's hard to
Not
tell where the
really.
Nintendo. To me, it's like it's hard to tell where the Nintendo greed starts and the realities of our economy begins.
And
I'm
also,
sure
we
there's
didn't talk
both.
about game chat, which I think is very telling about our thoughts on game chat.
Anytime we used game chat, I think we've used it twice. Once to test it, and one to show Alex
Yeah.
how crankled it
To be
is.
fair, it did work perfectly both times. Like, it does
Yeah.
function exactly how you want it to. I think it is just like if you have access to Discord, just do that. But
Yeah.
hey, maybe the Star Fox faces will mean. Imagine us doing an episode of the Star Fox faces. That'd be pretty funny.
Oh
So,
no, Alec. Oh no, Ryan. I don't like what you've started here.
I
I
feel
don't
like
like
that'd
what
be a
you've started.
great time.
Oh no, I can hear the gears clicking
Yeah. All right.
from the screen.
Putting that on the list for later. Okay. That said, let's go to shoutouts. Because yeah,
Yeah.
we've done our Switch 2 rundown. What's your shoutout for the week, Wyatt?
My shout out is Saros. Both Ryan and I have been playing
Hell
a
yeah.
bunch of Saros. Gameplay 11 out of 10. It's an incredible feeling game. The control is perfect. Um it just the combat feels great. Story, the jury is still out. I'm waiting to see how they tie everything together at the end because I'm,
Hmm.
inching my way closer and closer to the end. But I have to say, it's not gripping me nearly the same way that Returnal did.
Yeah.
But gameplay
I'm not as
alone
deep in
makes
the
it
story
worth
as
it.
you are, but the gameplay's great. I'm really liking it. I love the addition of the skill, like level up system, a permanent progression
Mhm.
system. Just because it
Yeah.
makes someone like me who wasn't very good at Returnal and couldn't finish the game feel like maybe I could finish the game this time. That combined with the modifiers feels like I have a little
You
bit
know what's
more.
been really it's been really dumb. I was looking at just because I'm interested in what people have to say about
Hmm.
stuff. I was looking through some like Reddit threads and stuff about Saros, and people are losing their shit over the world modifier stuff. Like
Really?
specifically, so for two reasons. One, because it's making the game more accessible and casual, and they hate that it's becoming easier. But also because it doesn't, if you make it harder, there's no reward for making it harder.
The challenge, it's challenge
It's
run.
you have to look at the world modifier as just a difficulty
I feel like
selector,
that's the equivalent of
as a
someone
difficulty
who
thing.
speed runs Mario 64 going, why didn't they put a reward for speedrunners at the end of the game if you beat it in under 10 minutes?
I the I know that the additions of things like uh uh um difficulty levels for challenging games is a touchy
Hmm.
subject, especially for the Souls community, which we're not really, that's a separate thing. It definitely feels like Saros was designed in a specific way, and this just allows people to either make it harder or make it easier for them if they want. I do not think this takes away from it at all. If you are the kind of person that wants your game to be as hard as possible, you can do that. There is nothing stopping you from making the game as difficult as possible. And I don't understand, I'll never understand why people are pissed when the game is also accessible for people who don't want that same
Yeah.
experience as you. If it allows for both, I really don't see what the problem is.
Yeah. No, I
Especially
agree.
for a game like especially for a game like Saros that's very stat heavy and works well with like a modular difficulty system. Like the argument has been made for difficulty settings in a Souls game. I'm not going to get into that because I'm not an expert, but I understand.
I
With
feel like
something like
modifiers are always my
Saros,
favorite solution because it's like
absolutely.
I know what the baseline is. Like the baseline is just not activating them, and that's great. Like that is
Yeah.
I like having that baseline because generally I want to play the baseline unless I'm having specific difficulties. But if I am, I would like to turn the difficulty down or like
Yeah.
do something that can let me learn how to play the game better enough that I'm not having problems. So
And if you're worried that the game is going to be compromised when it's not at baseline, just play a baseline. You
yeah,
spent the however much money you spent to play the way that you want to play it. Like you do whatever experience you want to do. It's so weird that it, it's why difficulty in games has always annoyed me because I feel like it's given ego to such to a lot of people where it's like, no, a game has to be hard and it has to be played this way, and if you're not doing it that way, then it's like
hmm,
then you're not playing it. Then it doesn't matter. They spent the game. They're gonna play however they want to play. As long as they're not griefing other players with cheats and shit, I don't care.
yeah.
It's fine. Um, but yeah, no, great game.
10 out of 10.
It's
Perfect
great.
review. I'm gonna shout out a little known game called Dead as Disco. Uh,
Oh yeah.
which has launched in early access, and I'm breaking
Mhm.
my dislike of early access games to play this one just because I'm such a massive fan of rhythm games that are not just regular rhythm games. And
Rhythm
oh
combat
my
games. Yeah.
god, it's so good. It is so buttery smooth. And the fact that you can plug in your own music just is so fun. I think it really proves that like the Hi-Fi Rush style works really well when you pull it off.
Yeah.
And granted, like this works a little bit differently, where Dead as Disco is not BPM locked or tempo locked the way that Hi-Fi Rush was. So Hi-Fi Rush, you have
Mm.
like most of the levels are running at the same tempo the whole time, whereas Dead as Disco is you play through a single song and then move on to the next one, and it will change. It'll like you can change the tempo. You manually, when you import a song, you set the BPM when you're importing it, and then the combat itself adjusts based on the BPM so
Mm.
that everything lines up the way you'd expect, and that means it just works tremendously well. Yeah, there's some songs that are like it works best within a certain range. It's like 110 to 200 BPM. So for some songs that are particularly low BPM, you might want to double it. So you're going at double BPM for certain things. But yeah, it works really, really well. And is just super fun to play. And I cannot wait to see what that game gets as it gets like actual content. Because as of right now, the custom song mode is just like a single arena, single waves of enemies, and it's clearly very like early access. But it's already
I didn't
so
know it
much
was
fun.
a I didn't realize it was an early access release. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's early access right now. It's only $20. Like, I heavily recommend jumping at it for $20 if you're into this genre of stuff. And that's not even
Mhm.
mentioning the incredible boss fight, like story levels, which are I have yet to beat one just because I've been mostly doing the custom song importing stuff, but the boss levels are tremendously cool, and I am very excited to actually grind one out and learn how to play the fight so I can get all the way through it. 'Cause, yeah, it's very, very fun.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
All right. Well, Maya, that's the end of our show.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And unfortunately, it seems like the Alexes have been all yellered. So we're gonna.
Oh no! No!
Look,
Listen, they really didn't want to talk about Nintendo. They preferred death over talking about Nintendo for almost 2 hours. Yep. As we're closing out, I'd just like to say, hey, Nintendo, put your music on like Spotify and other music platforms. What's going on?